There we go. As you can tell, I'm not Douglas. My name is Rutledge Ellis Benke. I was asked to chair this session 5 minutes ago. So this is technically primarily around publishing. And I'm just going to say the person's name so they can spend most of the time talking so we can hear from the audience because I don't need to hear myself talk. So the first one will be Lou Bala, the editor-in-chief of the Journal of Nanomedicine.
Thank you. May I have the first slide, please? Great. So, traveling around, thank you for coming. Traveling around, meeting from meeting, I realized that there is a reason, or there must be a reason why researchers whose, especially younger ones whose life depend on publishing scientific articles, know so little about it, what is happening and why it is happening. So I decided to put together a brief, it's not even introduction, but just the basics about. So I'm giving you my view of that, and it's not official Elsevier policy. My experience. So we all know that we live in an extremely accelerating world. On average, in every 20 seconds, there is a scientific paper coming out, which is incredible. And not to mention that all these revolutions, information, software, hardware, access, we have a huge amount of data, and those data are almost all accessible. And we all know both sides, but we really need just a good data. How do you decide? And then for the first time in human history, we are generating information much faster than it could be evaluated using traditional methods. So it's not how to search something, but when you get 5,000 hits, which one do you believe and why? On the other side, academics, there's a tremendous pressure on especially young ones to publish and prove themselves over and over and over again by publishing significant and original research in high-value media journals and top scientific journals. We just saw a presentation in Montreal that was full of pages from Nature and Science and whatever. What does it mean? So I'm going to talk very briefly what kind of scientific methods of evaluation, a short overview of what the impact factor, not what it is, but what are the limitations, where does we stand today, and finally I'm going to compare a few nanomedicine journals. Finally, this is a nanomedicine meeting. So the first thing you have to acknowledge that science publishing is a business. It's not for science, it's for the business. It sells information, useful information, that is knowledge, advancing theory and methods, for us, advancing medicine. If it's not, then it's not valuable or doesn't belong here. The second, because it has customers and it must generate profit, otherwise it wouldn't exist. And that would hurt everybody, how to share information. And there are, as formal, there are journals and magazines. Magazines do not have peer review. Scientific journals do. And there is, if there's a question, I can reflect a little more on that. But the point is that whoever pays enjoys the benefits. If the author pays, then he or she enjoys the benefits. If it's a government financed, shorter or after a longer period of time, there's a lot of open access publications. Actually, about half of the information is open access, but the qualified authors, about 2% and 3%, somewhere between who are using this, which means that we are flooded with information primarily determined by money and not quality review. But how can a value of a manuscript or even a publication be determined? A manuscript is even more intriguing because it is not yet public. So it didn't happen yet. How do you judge the value of that? Because this is the value what you can sell. But there are certain objective metrics, and I just put it in bold that these are estimations. Traditionally, this value of science is estimated by counting publications and citations, which sort of indicate importance to the scientific community. So whether we read it and where does it come from or where did I find it, all those things didn't matter. Value of the technology is much easier to approximate because there's a number of patents and companies that, but companies do exist like a 5-year period, and if they're not successful, they die. There's something else start over, so you can use an approximation. Until real product data and consumption data can be gathered for objective measurings. So why do we need scientific methods to measure these key performance indicators? What are those? It's one of my favorites. What do you see? It's moving, isn't it? Now focus on one. Just pick one area, one black dot, and focus on that. It stops. So there are a lot of artifacts which is actually generated by ourselves. So we need a little bit more, get more better than that. The classic one is documents output and influence, and by monitoring citations, patents, products, as I mentioned. Before publication, assessment by experts. I might have just put between quotes expert because I feel like nanomedicine, nobody is expert in nanomedicine. We understand a certain segment of the whole field, but medicine is incredibly complex, and if you cross-feed it with nano, it becomes even more complex. So there's a lot of temptations in there. There is peer review. Peer review is a system which doesn't work very well, just like democracy. Churchill's famous quote, you probably know, that democracy is a system that is not very well known, which it has not failed yet as compared to all the others we tried before. So there are, after publication, late peer review, most read, most read, most cited, effect on the publication network, or then other social media is coming up now. Who's the author? Where was it published? We see many examples on that. Popular, is it social? Faculty of 1000, Altmetrics, Elsevier is introducing, that's essentially measuring how many times was it quoted somewhere. There are other things that are available, and none of them is 100%. Measured by citations, let's look at citations and the limitations. The classic is the impact factor. That's the 2-year measure of how many people cited, how many times was cited in that particular area. Then the so-called eigenfactor and article influence of various mathematical algorithms. I'll show you the essence of it. And then a scientific, other essential scientific method using something similar to the Google algorithm, normalized impact and so on. No value can be expressed in one number. So there's always, these numbers always just show how the way, whatever it was compiled from, and the end results of that calculation. So let's say estimate separately individuals, departments, institutes, and the production of individuals. And these are different databases, as you know, and those are somewhat different, what they are using. And let's see how this looks like. This is a scientific citation network of life sciences from 2009. And you see that the field of medicine is heavily dominated by molecular cell biology. And all the others that are connected to each other. This shows the number of citations. The dark in the middle, that shows inside of the field, and all the others are the connections that how they are referring to each other. So that's a very interesting graph itself, but I just wanted to demonstrate that it's a system. Now, how does they generalize the citation curve? It looks like that. First, nobody knows, then people start reading it, start citing, start referring to it. So the first window is what is usually considered as the immediacy index, which roughly tells you that how rapidly people open that kind of publications. It's not a 100% measure because now it's a computer. You type in keywords, you type in topics, and you go by that and not by journals, but it's also that also influences the journal measurement. Then the 2-year period, that basically is the left half of the distribution curve, which allows you to estimate that how it will proceed in the general terms. And then, of course, the cited half-life, that how long those publications considered to be relevant by authors. Are they still reading it, or is it completely in a fastly changing area like nanomedicine? It's completely could be out of work after a couple of years. Impact factor, it's a gross approximation of the prestige of a journal, in which, let me repeat, the prestige of a journal and not the authors. And here you go, some examples. These are the most, in 2012, the highest ranked in impact factor in Nature and Technology. Our journal stands somewhere in the 10th place. This is Nanosciences, Nanotechnology out of 69. This is medicine area out of 11, out of 120 evaluated journals at that time. However, journals and magazines are all different size, different frequency, different language for different people, and so on. So how do you compare those? Articles are different types. There's a typical difference between a full paper, a short communication, and a review. And the 2-year window, you look at it. So that's, reviews have a long-term impact in general. And short communications, they bump up, they go away because they are not full information. Different fields have different impact factors because of the size. So there are fields, mathematics, that's a very low impact factor. There are life sciences, that's a very high impact factor. And the more authors are on the paper, typically the more it's impacted. So as AIC, I definitely, it's not my cup of tea, but I seriously doubt that all the 15 authors contributed all this, unless they are organized into groups, because now, not just people working together, but groups, research groups working together, and they all deserve credit. But that's a fact that they all will refer to their own papers, and it's not always excluded as self-reference. So this is how it looks like. Now, the other fact is that the most cited 15% of the articles account for 50% of the citations. And the most cited 50% account for the 90% of the citations. So the 10 times as often than the less cited health. So that's what you see on the left side. On the right side, you see the correlation between a citation rate and journal impact. There is no correlation. No. So the journal impact factor is strictly for a journal. It's not for people. Where did you publish? It's a wrong measure. Let's see 3 major journals. The public Physics Review B, it was very nicely compared by Borobashi and others. And now you see the why on the right side, why it is 5-year is the 5-year impact factor, because up to 5 years, roughly they follow the same route. But after 5 years, they will completely decline. There is no whatsoever. There are just keep rising, keep rising. And then looking at historical paper, the most influential papers, it's very hard to predict. After 5 years, here's the data. This is the uncertainty where you can predict where it will go. After 10 years, you pretty much can tell that what was the influence or not. And typically, the paradigm-changing discoveries have very low impact in their first period of time, which is also the limitation of peer review, that you can, as a matter of fact, the peer review discards everything which is out of order. So it triages the wrong experiments and the not correctly performed one, but also kills or may potentially kill the original ideas. And because they're unusual, they're not accepted yet. That's how it is. It's not wrong. It is not wrong. It's not bad. That's how it is. So two more useful ones. The eigenfactor, that's looking at using the entire network. Impact factor doesn't consider the network. It just counts citations. And based on that, the average influence per article in a journal, that's the main AI article influence. From the website, these are available. You can look it up. It's worth remembering. So what does it say? Eigenfactor score has the total importance of the scientific community. And the most important is, it's not Nature Advance, it's the Journal of Clinical Investigation. Now this is ordered by the eigenfactor value of the journal for 2012. However, if you go to the article influence, that's Nature Medicine, which is the most important, most influential. Why it is interesting? Because price of the journal is ranked by the article influence. So if you never knew where does it come from, it's roughly, that's the correlation. And actually this line, this reflects Elsevier's policy that is $3,000 for an open access. That's it, uniformly. They're starting to change that now. So you have a high impact, high influence paper, very old, and you may have the two together, and the highest one is Neuron. It's $5,000 a piece. So not every field is the same size. Remember that graph? So the SJR, the Simon journal rank, is calculated for the whole network, in which a citation from a more valuable source, a highly ranked source, worth more, which is normal. If your paper is cited in Nature, you're happy. If you cite it in a local newspaper, you're still happy, but it's not that real good one. And so that for the whole network, and source about the average is the ratio of the source average citation within the subject field. So a SNP is within the subject field, and SGR is over the whole network. Let's look at some numbers. These are the world ranking of scientific institutes and universities. And that's the website, simago.ir.com. It's worth to shop around and look at what is there. It provides a reliable, objective, relative ranking. Not everybody likes to see it, objective and relative ranking, but we need it. This is not a championship, so it's not like this year XYZ, the Broad Institute won the World Championship. No, it's citations number, it is what it is. And so volume and relative value, and the arrows indicate the direction of moving up and down. That's in medicine, just a couple of examples. The US produces a huge number of documents, and these are the citable documents according to the definition. But when you look at the citation per document, it's not the US who leads. Have you thought about that? It's Finland. Papers coming from Finland are the most highly cited. And you can look at the other ones. And what stands out really the first, now there are a number of small countries in there, yes, relatively small. I don't want to offend anybody from Sweden, but compared to the US, it is small. It's Switzerland, it's Poland, in Netherlands, and so on. Isn't that interesting? So in the multidisciplinary, it's a similar picture that's leading by volume. It said that China has crossed the line, but will cross soon. Yes, that's true. But when you look at the impact, that is the citation per article, that's number 13, so it's way below on there. It's coming up. All arrows points to the top. So I think I've excited your interest enough so you can go to the SGR website and look up your institute, your place, your journal. There's very interesting numbers in there. And why it is important? Because it's important to know objectively our present state. In order to develop further, you need to know where you are, whether you like it or not. Just a few things about our own journal. That's a key performance indicator, how many of them and how many of them is citable since we started. Most of them, almost except 5 articles, every paper was cited in our journal. And the thin green line is incredibly small difference. So it's this is not just me saying that, oh, we are great. No, and we have a lot of problems. And part of those problems coming from the scientific community, part of those are simply because we are also humans. That's it. But compared to others, I'm most proud of the average SGR rank 1. That's the average over the whole network. So we're about 2. It's twice as important. And these are the comparison of various nanomedicine-focused journals. European Journal of Nanomedicine is not there yet, but maybe next year or the year after. So it's coming out, it's a good base. And what I'm mostly proud of is just some self-publication that is a continuous development. It takes a lot of work, and mostly little work. My mother told me that the difference between the first-class restaurant and the third-class restaurant is not the food, it's the way it is presented. And then you take care, being fair to everybody, taking care of the authors, and taking care of the science, and being fair to the journal as well. So this is within the field. The previous one was over the whole network. And I'm closing, this is our H index, it hit 60, which is fairly good at the Young Journal. And finally, medicine, all categories. Now I can decipher this. There's a first 100 value SGR is produced more than 50 documents in 2012. There's 1,586 journals total. The most on the top, it's the New England Journal of Medicine, which we all know qualitatively that that's one of the most important resources. And continue the Lancet and so on. And we are number 15 on that list, which is, again, of top 1%. I'm very proud of that. My final slide, my only goal is be persistent. We all want the same thing, to publish reliable, good information that helps the field. So the editors are not your enemies. We love to have great articles, but we also have to educate people. And if you look at the submission date and the published date, this must have been a really persistent people. Thank you very much for your talk.
Questions?
So that was really interesting.
Thank you, Ken.
And I think you can probably hear me, right? Okay.
I can hear you. I'm not sure that everybody will hear you, but.
Okay, so I've been publishing for years, and I've never really understood it as well as I have.
Thank you.
The question I have is,
Ken, I've been a scientist for 35 years, and I never really understood until I looked into it. And now it's much better.
if you take a broad view of all of this, would you come up with very different items in terms of ranking of a particular article? If you use many different methods, for example,
Eigenfactor value.
and then there are all these other indices that
Well,
didn't mention that. Does it matter, or is it really?
yeah, I understand. So the question is, if you look at different phase and different numbers, what does it mean? Is this a really question? Every number just expresses something the way it was measured, and then it was concluded. Somehow it was compacted into one number. But it makes sense. For example, with the eigenfactor value, if you look at the total is 1. So if 0.2 means that 20% of the medical community reads the Journal of Clinical Investigation, that's the highly influenced or much influential journal, the most influential journal because everybody reads it. The other, if you look at the nanomedicine journals, total, that is cited, sorry. If you look at the most important, the nanomedicine journals, the total is 0.01. So it's very, very small. Let's not mislead ourselves just because we're at the nanomedicine conference. We are not dominating medicine, not at all. We are a very small segment of medicine presently. But that's an opening to the future, and that's why I think it's very important. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing as well. So if you look at the article influence, that's the same story. So it's the field that we are presently a part of the very small field of more than average influence on the whole network. That's what we are. That's what they say, simply. And whether it is a relative ranking is 6.9 or 5.8 or I don't know, because it doesn't matter too much. What matters is the direction, because simply because in every year it's a publication activity, scientific, and this is scientific publication. That there's that many of papers. What is born, and there's the top of the pyramid, which is really good. Now, because it's a business, you have to choose or balance the market share, how much you want to publish, and the quality. How good is that? You want to do Lamborghinis? Let's just make 1,000 every year. Or you want to do Nissan Sentra and make 1 million? That's not up to the science anymore. Thank you. I think Terry was.
Let me talk about this from the point of view of a person who writes the papers and reviews them. I understand we have a for-profit publishing industry. It serves a valuable purpose in disseminating information. Governments like it because it generates metrics. Our employers use these metrics to determine whether we're going to be promoted or not.
Yeah.
But here I am, an academic researcher, and I'm a very highly published and highly cited one. But a lot of what's published and every day my inbox is full. Can you review this? Can you write this other review? Blah, 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 blah. I'm expected to do it all for free out of the time that I should normally be doing research, okay? And a lot of what ends up being published is and the pressure on the young people to publish or perish and to publish more and more to get their citation index up and whatnot. And a lot of what's published is just a repetition of what's been published before. And the reviews are not often highly researched and often not that valuable, and yet we're asked to publish more and more reviews because somewhere in the publishing industry they said that the reviews are the main thing that increase the citation index for the journals. And so we're caught in this vicious cycle where more and more garbage is ending up being published in the service of these metrics. And somehow I'm becoming very annoyed about it. And maybe I see everybody nodding and smiling, so
No,
I
agree with you.
don't know what the answer is to this, but it shouldn't
Yeah.
go on.
Let me say two things. I completely know what you are talking about. I remember myself, quite highly published and a lot of thousands of citations. So I think it helps me as an EIC very much that I've been on the other side as well. So I know, I just simply introduce things. I'm personally, I'm not, I'm responsible for the content and for the team of not the administrative team, but all the scientists at the journal. So I just simply introduce those things I've always wanted to see. And the effect is that more and more people are trying to come. Because, but the other hand, the other side is that it's two-sided. There has to be a collaboration between two. And yes, it's a business. And yes, it's magazines without peer reviews getting slower and slower. The response rate is about 50%. I mean, response rate, not the critics, number of critics. The response rate is about 50%, and everybody is getting overloaded. But on the other side, on the other hand, so I always ask, I get those nasty letters or annoyed letters, and every week something, and always ask, do you really want me to assign your paper to an editor who is not expert on your area, and he should not ask people who are trained in that particular area to help you? Because our goal is, at least at this journal, our goal is to have your paper published, to have right, reproducible, right, well-done research that moves the field forward. And we all agree on that. That's also I learned on my own experience that if they help me, I help you. I'm in. You know, that's why, for example, we have a category, reject with hope. That means we hope you fix it and come back, because it's a great idea. Just half cooked, because you want it to publish immediately as it came out. It's an observation, one cell line, one grade, whatever. It might be an artifact, it might be observation, it might be that the graduate student graduated and he went away and you cannot reproduce his results. You know, there's so many things. On the other hand, on magazines, and I'm not naming names, but they go for the sensational, because their task is to sell magazines. And those magazines have professional editorial board. That means 5 or 4 or 6 professional editors, usually a couple of years of experience in science, 4 or 5 years typically. And they sit down and decide whether it is a revolutionary article or not. No more comment. I can't make, I don't normally make sweeping general statements. I always hated that. But this is it.
Okay, two more quick questions,
Yep.
because we got to move on.
And I'm trying to give short answers.
Two simple questions. First, how do you like Mayo Clinic Medical Journal?
I like it.
You like? All right, so let's publish. Second, globally speaking, Elsevier, as the publishing house, what is the percentage of rejections
Say it
from
again.
admission
What-
papers?
Yes?
Elsevier, what is the percentage of rejection papers?
I have no idea what's the Elsevier overall. Our rejection rate was 72% last year, and before that 75%. Our present goal is 80%.
Thank you.
I have a general question. You insisted on the fact that science publishing is really a business. So thank you to be clear.
Not science.
No, but publishing is a business. Thank you for clarifying this point. My question is that the researchers are doing a significant part of the job. They are writing the articles, and they are now overflowed with reviewing articles.
That's correct.
But there is no funding for that. I mean, they don't get money for all this job. And even our universities have to pay more and more for having the possibility to have an access to the publications by internet. So I think that if the system continue like that, it will kill itself.
Well, I cannot comment on Elsevier or any other publisher.
I don't speak about Elsevier
No,
necessarily.
I'm not. I'm just saying that I cannot do that for obvious reasons, and I don't have data. And I think that was in a Nature magazine or Science magazine. I can't recall exactly, but there is no data about what exactly how it is broke down. It's very internal, handled as a business confidential data. So I don't know, but I do agree it's considerable, but there are perks to it. Reviewing, looking at the related field half a year before it is published, you know, bad ideas, good ideas with bad, not really well executed, and great ideas, and you read it before it is published in a half a year. So yes, that's it is, but my personally of the policy, you can ask that much for volunteer people. And if I tell you that this journal is run by 2 part-time employees, I'm really proud of it. And not myself, but all the others who are pitching in. Both as authors, both as reviewers, and especially who are associate editors, and that really takes. But the maximum load is one a month, one a week, I'm sorry. one new manuscript a week. I insist on not giving more. You cannot ask for more. Thank you.
We
Yeah,
gotta
I know,
go on.
this is
So-
an endless topic,
Well,
but I'm available if you have anything.
It's a great topic because I completely agree with you about the whole publishing thing. And